Let's think about inclusive student activities planning using Grade 5, Unit 4, Day 3. This day has the same learning target as Day 2, which is represent and describe decimals and decimal fractions to the thousandths place using decimal grids, number lines, and decimal notation. So, when I'm trying to plan my lesson, I've got so many resources here, but I really want to zoom in on inclusive student activities. For me, when I'm planning ISA, the first thing I like to do is just make sure that I have some simple practice problems that are aligned to the learning target. And the easiest place for me to find those is in the resource that I have in my classroom. So let's imagine I'm an Envision teacher. I'm going to go to Topic 1, Lesson 3. I'm going to skip ahead to the part of Envision where I have lots of practice problems. But I'm certainly not going to assign all of these problems. I'm going to pick a mix of problems that consider different aspects of rigor, really think about the learning target and what the learning target is asking, and making sure that I'm not just doing a bunch of drill and kill. So I want to consider different denominators. I might assign 11, 12, and 14. Again, different denominators. Let's do 20, 21, and 25. And then I definitely want some higher level problems that really get students thinking. So I'm going to do 29, 31, 32, and 34. Envision recommends those pink check marks. I read those problems ahead of time, and I know that this gives me a good mix of practice around my learning target. I want all students to do those problems at some point during ISA. If I'm in an expression school, I would go to Unit 2, Lesson 1, and I already skimmed through this lesson, so I'm going to jump ahead quickly to show you that I found this handout that's kind of aligned to my learning target. Again, I'm not going to assign all of it. It doesn't have as many problems as Envision, so I don't need to eliminate quite as many, but I'm going to do 6, 8, 16, and then 18 through 21. A mix of denominators, a mix of aspects of rigor, all aligned to my learning target. And I want all students to do those problems. But ISA is 35 minutes long, and my students have different needs. So in addition to doing that, I want to think about what else they could do. That's why the Pacing Guide has so many other resources. The obvious place to look could be illustrative and engage. In this case, there's nothing here for engage, but I could always look at illustrative to see if there's anything that I might want to use or assign. When I looked through this lesson earlier, I really liked some of these visuals. I think it gives a great opportunity to practice comparing and making connections between the fractions, the visual, the decimals, the visual, fractions and decimals. I actually think I might just use that for my small group instruction. So I could go back to preparation, go down to student task statement, and if I download the PDF, it will give me a nice printable version. I'm not going to use all of these pages, but I think I might just use this page. I think this would be a great way for me to work with a small group, to have them representing some of these fractions and decimals, and then discussing them, making connections between the concrete, representational, and abstract. I could even get out some place value blocks to help us as well. So I used IM, in this case, to help me with small group instruction. It looks like I had some other things I could have done with small group instruction, but those same resources are repeated for multiple days, so maybe I use them on Day 2 or Day 4, but I'm pretty good for Day 3 by pulling something from illustrative. But I do want to think about, we have practice at the learning target, we have a small group activity I pulled. I want to pick at least one more thing for a center. When I looked at these earlier, I really liked mystery number. I think I'm actually going to have my students practice mystery number on Day 2, 3, 4, and 5. One of the cool things about mystery number is it allows me to differentiate, because when I looked at it, I noticed that there's different versions. There's the version with whole numbers and a version with decimals. And I know that ISA is a great time for me to accelerate learning. Some of my students need practice with 4th grade place value before they can do that 5th grade place value. So we can have a center where students are playing these games with partners. It's great because they're practicing vocabulary and they have those words as a reference to help them with their vocabulary. And I can target their needs based on what version I assign them. That's probably enough for my ISA today, but if I wanted to do more, I could pick one of these other activities. Another thing I could do is if I go to my pre-assessment, it will help me understand where I can find resources from previous grades if I know I need to do even more acceleration. Another thing I can think about for ISA is exploring my tier, special education, and English learner strategies. Take a look at those documents at the beginning of the unit to really think about what strategies you can infuse throughout the unit. One thing I want to point out is actually for grades 4 and 5 in the special education document, there is something called Math by Example. And if you go down there, it's a concrete resource that you can actually print out and use. So in this lesson, I'm not adding and subtracting, I'm actually writing decimals. That's the one that's aligned to my learning target. I could use this in small group. I could have a center where students are doing this. I could assign it to some students. I could assign it to all students. But Math by Example is cool because it has kids analyze incorrect work and correct work. And they have those examples for all the different learning targets and standards. So although that is specifically in the special education document, it could be great for all kids during ISA. So I picked my problems from my textbook. I have my small group ready with the worksheet from IM. I'm going to have a center for mystery number, and maybe I'll have another center for Math by Example. That is more than enough for ISA for today. I just want to highlight that if you are in 6th grade, there's so many similarities, but there are a couple of differences just in terms of the types of resources that are aligned for additional. In 6th grade, you have a lot of things that are actually on the computer, like Desmos or these interactive platforms. So that's something you can certainly incorporate during ISA. There's also lots of tasks. And in 6th grade, you have a really great section called Reactivating Prior Knowledge that you can use to accelerate learning. That's a lot of talking, but big picture, try not to stress too much about planning for ISA. Pick some problems from the learning target, pick something for small group instruction, and have at least one other center. That's all you really need to make sure that students are getting what they need toward the learning target and considering the different needs